What I want to do is to talk about this entire perspective of what happens in the corporate and what is it that we have done so far, what's the journey that we should be traveling in future. The first question I wanted to ask, and we will first start with you, because you are the host. I want to find out that, when we say that there are several barriers to being inclusive, employing people with disability, what, in your opinion, comes in the way?
We're a service industry. I don't know if you're embarrassed, but we're not able to put people who are differently able in front of our guests. I know of some hotels who are doing it, but maybe we've not started doing that yet. So that's like the first part. The second is we work under very different kind of environments. We're working minimum 12 hours a day, and getting people out here, a lot of stress behind the scenes, which maybe doesn't come across to the guests, to put them out there and to take care of them. Like I was telling you, we've got 3 colleagues in our Whitefield hotel, and it's literally like the whole, they're like, we're all parents for them. We all have to take care of them. And I think it requires a high level of maturity to have these people working with us, a lot of sensitivity. And it's not easy. It sounds very noble to do all this, but yes, all my hotels are not able to have so many people working with us. So that's a challenge for us.
When we talk about any kind of hiring, I think the principle remains the same, that look at what the job demands, what does that role demand, and see who's the right person who can fit that. If I were to use that criteria, I'm sure there are jobs which, and we were just seeing that people with autism are actually extremely good because they are focused, they can do repetitive tasks. And there are a number of people who actually find it extremely difficult to be focused and do repetitive tasks. Why do we not have more autistic people employed?
I know, we haven't worked on it. I've been discussing this since I got invited out here, and I think there is a huge scope for us. I was talking to Kavita the other day, and I think we in corporate don't even know that these people are available. The second part is it's a great business idea for us, because today's youth can't do these repetitive kind of jobs. They get bored easily. Like what's happened at SAP is it's a remarkable story, and I think we all can make use of that. But we've not really thought about it, and we've not worked towards it. And I think with this summit, what I was discussing with the team also was, we need to make some sort of a commitment that we help them out.
Would you want to make a commitment like that?
Of course we would. As a matter of fact, my entire team is really excited about what's happening today. And all my general managers are really keen that we try and get some people on board. And I had one of my colleagues here who's been sitting through the day. And we definitely want to look at it, but I'm not sure if we can look at what kind of careers. We really need to give a thought to it. We haven't really worked on it.
You raise an interesting question, because I think for creating the field and making it more inclusive, I think there are 2 stages. First is the more tangible piece, which is providing employment. Start doing a job. And the second one is actually providing a career, which is to actually move them through like anybody else. And I think that is a second step that we want to take this entire concept to. And the reason why I want to talk about that is, we have somebody here in the audience. We have Anis Joseph, who actually looks after this initiative in Wipro. My recommendation is have a word with her. We employ about 500 people, and we are actually taking them across to different kinds of career options as well. So that's the second step that we are trying to embark on. So we are not creating special jobs. They are applying like anybody else. In fact, during the course of the conversation, we do not make any provisions to say that, so that the people are deciding on the basis either for or against. They apply like anyone else. They get selected like everyone else. They do the same roles as everyone else. And therefore, logically, they should expect a career like someone else. Yeah. So you've employed a number of people. What is the kind of disabilities that you've seen in your employees, and what have been the challenges, what has worked well?
We actually started with people with orthopedically challenged because disability was not so well seen, which is actually seen now when I started this organization. So moving forward, while we were recruiting a lot of people, the recruitment was all alone because we didn't have too many people, and this was my first job as well. So HR and all was not really which was actually done. So there was a banner in front of my office which said that we are recruiting data entry operators. So physically challenged, please apply. So that was the board which we had, and that's when I realized that hearing impaired also come under the disability umbrella. So we had, now currently we have orthopedically challenged, hearing impaired, and very few people who are so-called intellectually challenged.
And, what is the best thing about having somebody who has had a disability? Is that true that they actually are far more dedicated, or are they like anyone else? What's been your experience?
In terms of my experience, yes, when there is a disability, I mean, I'm sure everybody here will accept that, there is something which is there to compensate you, which we have been seeing. And the best thing about, while we were discussing here is like, youths feel that, doing the same kind of a job is boring and, we don't want to do it. But I have seen that I have most of my employees who are still youths, and who have been doing the same job from the last 5 years and never felt that this is boring. So this is the difference. They want to prove, they want to do it right every time, and always ensure that the end customer or whoever is satisfied. So that's how the experience went.
Brilliant. Sabir, it's really something that there is a huge opportunity when you look at bodies like CII, which you work so closely with. What is the CII's perspective on employing people with disability? Why don't we have more of that?
No, firstly, I think we need to be very clear. You see, we are talking about equal opportunity employment, right? So when we look at this entire spectrum, we do not mix this with CSR and charity, right?
Completely.
And what we, like you rightly said, we look for the right person for the right job. And what is India signed up for? We need to understand that. One of the basic issues which we are trying to deal with is the lack of awareness. So this lack of awareness is number one, and like Dr. Bedi said a little while ago, the second part is the lack of sharing, right? So the lack of awareness is really telling, because a lot of us even do not know as employers that we have signed up to the UNCRPD, that we are obligated as an employer.
Tell us the full form of UNCRPD.
So, it is.
I would stump him with that. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah,
go ahead.
But what I'm trying to say is that, you see, if you look at the basic tenets of law, an employer is required to give reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities as is defined under the Persons with Disabilities Act. This act, as Dr. Talked about earlier, is under review. But the fact of the matter is that as employers, we have found that there is a lack of inclusiveness at the education level, which we are sort of fundamentally trying to bridge by, CII, the Disability Forum, which was established in 2006. And the CII Disability Manual, which has come out, is one of the most comprehensive manuals dealing with this chapter. The real issue is that when we have conferences like these, most of the time we are preaching to the converted. True. The real issue is that we need to go out and convert more people outside, like what was just Priya was just talking about, that you need to convert entire teams. Because if you look at even HR is still knowledgeable, but a lot of times recruiting is really outsourced. And we at CII now are talking about a model of a zero risk employment model. And that is our new approach. What we are saying is that we as employers, we collaborate with a nodal NGO partner as well as some specialist agencies to actually train people. Like, you were writing a book on do not hire the best, But what I'm trying to say is that you can get people, and if you look at any corporate, we are trying to train people after we hire them. So in this model, what we are saying is that we collaboratively train persons with disabilities after giving reasonable adjustments and accommodation, and after a certain set period of time, we bring them onto the full roles of the company. And that is really the way forward, because we need to treat persons with disabilities or anybody else with dignity, number one. Number two, we need to have more open days of the way we move forward. Number three, we need to have experience sharing among corporates. For example, see, this is the left hand doesn't know the right hand concept. Like the Tata Group is one of the most, one of the best, I would say, in dealing with this issue in this country, right? So if you look at Titan Industries, and there are other several companies which hire a lot of people with disabilities. So the issue comes where, how does the sharing move, and, how does that percolate downward? So now what we are trying to do is that to deal with career issues, we have now formed what is called a CII Tools chapter. Now this Tools chapter currently is being project managed by Goldman Sachs. And what we are trying to do is that we are trying to move the next level forward, where people have joined a particular company, but they are not able to progress in their careers because there are artificial barriers. For example, coding, all coding which is written, all codes, all systems are not accessible.
Let me come back and just take a view of that. You raised the interesting piece about making the entire portion of the work accessible. Which is that if a person who is employed should be able to read all the information which is there on the intranet, being able to use the furniture, being able to conveniently move around, make reasonable accommodation. Bhuvan, SAP Labs has done something absolutely amazing in terms of employing people who are autistic. What was the moment that made you feel that you wanted to do this?
I think it's not just about employing people with autism. It is about embracing different skills as well. What was earlier diversity, which was so closely connected to gender diversity, I think that's opening up.
Sure.
I think as companies, we are unlearning and learning in terms of moving away from diversity, gender, generational to inclusion, inclusivity, however you want to call it. I do recall in SAP, for example, 10 years ago, we had recruited a lady who was mute. So, and she was perfectly fine in software engineering and all that. After 8 years, we realized she is where she is, in the same grade, doing the same job, and somewhere as an organization, we have left her behind because she did not have a level playing field like everyone else. And there was so much of learning in her case for us. And all she needed was an interpreter, because she can't participate in conference calls, et cetera, she doesn't know what's going on. Someone had to put a lot of effort for her. And in companies, it's easy to get a mobile phone. An approval for a mobile phone, we all know it's so easy to get. She doesn't need a mobile phone. She needs an interpreter, and getting an interpreter means getting a person. Absolutely. Getting a person is a headcount issue. Getting headcount means it needs 100 approvals. So all we did was to showcase this interpreter as part of infrastructure. Just the way you and I get a chair, a mobile phone, someone who's mute should get an interpreter as part of infrastructure. Now when we change that whole thing from a headcount person to an infrastructure, the whole paradigm changes. Then it was in a day. We could get an interpreter for her.
Absolutely.
So I think as companies, we are also learning, and I can speak on behalf of other IT companies to a large extent. We are unlearning and learning to embrace people of different abilities. And I think we have amazing potential. If you look at employees with autism, if you look at testing as a part of software development life cycle, there's no one better than them.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable. But just that we are not aware. We're just not aware of it. And one day when we got aware, we could do this. Now, there could be so many other aspects of our business where we could employ so many people with different abilities or whatever. So I think a deeper education and awareness need to happen for people like us, so that we leave the baggage behind, what we were carrying so far, unlearn and learn, and see how as companies we can support employment. Now, if it means that we have to participate in building skills, so be it. These things don't happen overnight. I mean, it takes 3 to 5 years from the time you can identify talent and impart skills and then absorb them, and it needs certain high degree of sponsorship by companies. Last week, our executive board member was in Bangalore. She met trainers of Rohan and other colleagues. She said, oh my God, why aren't we doing this globally? This is amazing. Why didn't globally SAP didn't realize that for testing we could employ them? And now it's becoming a global project for us. That how we can take it globally to employ people with autism into testing practice. It's unbelievable.
And I think really you raise the fundamental lens with which we need to look at this entire process, which is that we find roles where the disability is actually the strength that you want. Because that's the only way you can actually provide careers for people and not just one particular assignment. If you take this example that you said of testing, I mean there are similar examples in manufacturing. And when I was working with Frito-Lay, they were in the packing section, and Ramesh is here, he'll sort of talk about that as well. That in the packing section, there were people who used to always complain of the high sound. And they would say that we need to take more frequent breaks because we need to go out and just take a break from the sound. We employed people who were hearing challenged. The productivity shot through the roof for the simple reason that for them it didn't make a difference. And it was actually, there was no problem of absenteeism. They were able to do that. And so likewise, there are opportunities in every company. So if you say that our job does not offer an opportunity, I think you're missing the point.
Absolutely.
I want to take you back to the other piece that you raised about training. I think, again, my belief is that we spend far too much, at the initial stage, we wondered about how do we get them into the main work stream, but we don't really do enough to make sure that they succeed in the work stream. How do you do that? So, as a leadership development person, it fascinates me. What are things that you do to, develop their abilities?
I think it's, let me put it this way, to answer your first part of the question, it makes absolute business sense to look at strengths each individual brings and match it to the different jobs that a company has.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we were all so far straitjacketing this. We feel one size fits all, so a person like this fits all the jobs in the company. That's nonsense. Right? I think that paradigm is changing, and I think companies are embracing that one. But in terms of development, I think we need a greater degree of sensitivity and awareness, not just with leadership in a company which wants to sponsor this, but the ecosystem around special employees. The ecosystem has to be supportive. I mean, we heard about the way Rohan was talking about how he always used the word colleagues, friends, etc. I think the ecosystem needs to be sensitized. And by the way, in our industry, we are talking about an average age of 28, 30 years.
Correct.
And trust me, this age group is far more smarter, far more sensitive than 40-year-olds.
Actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're far more knowledgeable about how we can impress them. So I think the ecosystem plays a very strong role. And as companies, it's about providing the right infrastructure. And I think a lot needs to happen in terms of being aware, one, what roles we can use the strengths of different people. Two, where can we find them? Yeah. I think half the time recruitment is under pressure to meet numbers, timelines, etc. But if you know exactly, this is a supply chain. Right? We got to, it's a cycle. We got to invest at the training side before people come into companies, and then we got to further develop them and make them, I think the bottom line is how can we provide a level playing field for them?
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, if you provide a level playing field, it's perfect. And they can succeed. Anyone can succeed.
I'd just like to put in out here, I think a lot of us don't know how to handle these people. We are not aware of how to handle them, how to deal with them, and maybe we need training also. So it's not only training for their growth, but I think to start with, like I keep telling my team, I think we need to be trained before we bring them on board, because it's been a learning experience for us to have just 3 people working in our one hotel, but we are scared, to get some more on. So
how have you trained the people around you?
Yeah, I want to actually add to this. Honestly, I also did not know what to do, but one thing I've realized over my 6 years journey is that one is that you have to make them comfortable, get in that belief in them, saying that you are doing together. You're not actually trying to create sympathy or, trying to help. We are actually supporting, That's what we told them, and that's how we've been doing it. So that one thing, we need to start thinking. There is no actually training required as per my understanding or my experience. It is just that we all need to believe that we can work with them and they're as able as anybody else. It's just that their disability is seen, ours is not seen. That's it.
And Sebi, I want to sort of take this whole perspective that, when you find somebody in the office who is not good at crafting strategy, we don't identify that as a disability. But we identify many other parts of the population as disabled. Why is it so difficult to, accept that as like any other strengths and development needs that people have? Somebody is poor in language, as someone was giving the example. Somebody's poor in strategy, somebody's poor in communicating with people. We all have our challenges.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the real issue is that there is a methodology to follow when we do this, right? Number one, to Priya's point, we need to sensitize not only our top management to what Bhuvan said, but our lower level managers, including those who might be outsourced. The second part is that we need to look at the low-hanging fruits. For example, a lot of our work actually is getting outsourced. In that outsourcing, can we actually employ persons with disabilities? Yes, we can, because a lot of that work happens in the periphery. There is no real risk to the job. The third part is that we need to treat people as equal. And that is why the entire concept of rights for persons with disabilities has come about, and that is the UNCRPD and the background of that. But the fact of the matter is that, you see, when you look at jobs, you need to have sensitization at the top. You need to have a solid NGO partner who understands. You need to have a community which supports. You need to have an ecosystem which trains within your system. You need to have a proper performance management and objective setting process which ensures that the job is done. You need to have a job analysis so that the job is identified and broken down into a certain part so that you can understand which is taken out and which can be helped, or which is that difficult area for that particular person with disability. And fourthly, the last part is the issue of budgets. To Bhuvan's point, it's exactly that kind of thing. It is either, what I would recommend employers is that it is either a part of your infrastructure cost, or else it's part of a central budget of funding. Because you cannot deny people employment because you might have to buy an extra magnifier on their screen, or else have a JAWS software which will run on their programs. So I'm saying that all the more reason that companies and employers and NGOs need to come to the forums. For example, we run the disability forum, and the disability forum, it's not that it meets on and off, but you see, the fact is, other than the meeting, we are always in touch. We also have hotels which have, sort of, for example, in the hoteliering industry, ITC has done great work. So we can connect hotels to ITC and the other networks which are there. We also, what we do is that in the last few seminars, we have sort of broken it up into ITES, hoteliering, manufacturing and management.
So in every nature of the job, there are benchmarks and peer support groups.
Yes, there is. But the fact is that, you see, it is not that there is too much of it in writing. So the writing, if you see the writing, which is a very comprehensive manual, and I again say this because it's free, it's available, it's the CII Disability Manual. It's a whole resource of information for anybody who wants to start on this journey. And as far as we are concerned, we are also having different kinds of movements. Even, I represent NASSCOM as well. And both in CII and NASSCOM, we have moved this to a certain level where we want to see employees as well as employers, as well as NGOs and civil society participating in this network. Because if you do not participate in this network, it's very little you can get because you're standing outside.
Right. And I think in each of those areas, like I was mentioning, that even in training, as we were sort of in Wipro, when we were getting our people sensitized to this whole process, we trained trainers. How do you do that training when you have people with disability in the classroom? How does the way that your slides look, what do you use instead? So all those are sensitization processes. It's also a process of actually equipping people with alternatives. I was, during the lunchtime, I was talking to someone about an example that very often our notion of disability lies in the fact that the way that we look at the minority and majority, that defines what is disability. Because, I was interviewing Andrew Solomon, who's written this absolutely amazing book called Far From the Tree. And he's talked to people, and it's a brilliant, brilliant book. It's rated as one of New York Times best books of the year. Andrew Solomon actually talks about the fact that when you look at the parents of children, their biggest experiences, parenting not only changes the child, but the process of bringing the child up also changes the parent. And if you think about it from an employment point of view, I think it also changes the environment in which the rest of the people operate. So I don't think there is any charity or there's anything of that sort. It sort of comes back with us. So I think the opportunity is in every state of from the employment, the career, the dignity, the environment, the culture, and it's all of that. When you've looked at the entire notion of employing people with disability, what has been your biggest barrier? Were there moments when you felt that you wanted to go back on that commitment? And
never I wanted to go back. But
what kept you going?
The only thing which kept me going is my employees who were coming here and showcasing how best they are, and which again we have been benefiting by that. As a company, we've been benefiting in terms of making our customers feel happy. So I never felt that I should not hire them. On the other hand, the challenges were, again, as he rightly mentioned, the skill development. Because for hearing impaired, I don't know in Karnataka how many schools or colleges are there. So the education stops there.
In Kerala, there is,
right.
there is education for that.
Correct. So what we looked at is, so we laid our own things like, we said that, one of the qualification for a person to get into Vindhya is attitude. We felt that if a person has a right attitude to do anything, he can do wonders. So that's how we started, and then I never looked at qualification as a barrier. So we have people who have not even passed 10th. I mean, we have various kinds of job. Being a startup, that's
sure.
the fun of doing everything and anything. So that's how we started. So we have different kinds of people across all levels. One thing I feel as of today is what we need to do is, see, we are talking about sensitization of corporates, team and everything. On the other hand, I don't know how many of us know that, there are a lot of people sitting here and talking about disability and everything, but is the disability community aware of this? How many of them are aware? Is something I want to, create
sure.
sensitization, and I really want every one of us to do that, because there are a lot of sensitization which is happening from the last 6-7 years, but the disability community in the urban areas know about corporates employing them, but the rural place, they do not know what is corporates doing, and are they really good or fit for a job? So that is something which I want to do.
Thank you very much. I know that we are coming to the end. I just wanted to say thank you. And I think this is a group that has the greatest amount of resources, the greatest canvas, and I think the greatest sense of responsibility to improve our own lives by expanding the scope and really making it an equal opportunity for everyone. So thank you very much, Sebi. Thank you very much, and appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you so much indeed.